Hello and welcome back to Substream. First thought of today. Imagine a world where crimes are prevented before they happen, right? No more reacting to chaos, just purely proactive, preventative safety. Well, that's the promise of AI crime prediction systems, or predictive policing, as some people call it. Now, this is like cutting edge technology. Or is it? Well, we're going to explore that, and I'm going to kind of tell you everything that I've found from my research about this topic, how it has transformed some law enforcement agencies and hindered others, and given kind of unchecked power to some states. There's some pretty shocking and damning information in this video, but there's also some parts of AI crime prediction systems that are still up for debate, and you can make your mind up how you feel about them and how they help tackle crime. Now, if you remember back that first little statement that I said about a world where crimes are prevented before they happen, you may have connected that to the 2002 movie starring Tom Cruise called Minority Report. Now, I just want to make the difference here. That movie was about an unrealistic technology that can read kind of everybody's mind and know what they're going to do before they do it, so that they can arrest them before they've even done the crime. Totally bizarre. That's not what this is. This video, it's all about data, algorithms, and how we put them together, crime data especially, to try and tackle crime in a preventative way. Does it work? We're going to get to that. It's pretty controversial. Now, if you're wondering about my strange surroundings, I'm in a cave hotel in Cappadocia in Turkey on holiday with my fiance, and it is beautiful here. If you haven't heard of it, go Google it. It's really spectacular. Back to the story though. AI has revolutionized so many different industries. We've seen it, we've covered it in over 100 videos here on Substream, but crime and law is a really difficult one to tackle, and that's why I wanted to do it in this video, because knowing where and when crimes might occur is something that many law specialists believe can be solved by AI. It's just that in pretty much every project, test, research, case study so far, it hasn't quite gone to plan. Now, you've got cities around the world grappling with these crazy crime increases and basically clutching at straws, trying to find ways to solve them. And they will try different stuff, but I just think you need to keep an open mind when I read you these case studies in a minute, that this is a very delicate subject, and your own demographic watching this video will interpret everything differently. Now, before I give you these case studies, I just want to give you a bit of a bigger picture kind of perspective on how an AI algorithm might go about solving. They all do them differently, but to act as this super smart investigative detective kind of entity, they have to basically receive huge amounts of data. They have to look through that data, sift through it, and try and find patterns, try and find things that human analysts basically might miss. Now, to do that, they need to have a very high level of sophistication in terms of machine learning capabilities. They need to be able to analyze huge amounts of historical data, which may not have been collected fairly or without bias, may not have consistent collection methods, and that may vary from one locale or location to another. There's also environmental factors to put in, technological factors to add in, social media trends to add in. There's so many different things that compound to make criminal activity more or less likely in a certain area. Now, one way that it has tried to be done in the past is to take a city and draw a massive grid over it and then correlate historical crime data against the grid, right? Where have crimes taken place? But that doesn't always work, because there's different kinds of crime. There's also different kinds of data. Is a crime when a crime's been reported or when an arrest has been made? What's the difference? What if there are communities that handle crimes internally and don't like to involve the police? There are, as we say, many different factors to consider. So from concerned mothers in Chicago who were worried about their children and wanted to feel safer on the streets, to Los Angeles business owners who wanted to feel protected from burglaries, there was a lot of reasons to try, at least, to give AI its chance to shine to solve the massive crime epidemic. So for a while there, we're talking about a decade ago, that's when predictive policing first was introduced in the US and first trialed is the key word here. It was temporarily embraced. We could say it was pretty uncomfortable for some people, but they had to at least try, because if it could really transform the way that we see, understand, and detect and solve crime, then it's worth doing, right? Well, let me tell you about the different case studies that I've found out about. These are well documented. I've put the sources in below if you want to go and do further research. There's a lot of information, white papers, studies, all about these. They're really interesting, but they all come to a very similar conclusion, as you'll see. So the first one is probably the most famous one. And if you look into predictive policing, it is the one that you arguably find the most information about. It's Chicago's strategic subject list. Now, this was quite a while back, over a decade ago. It used AI to identify individuals that they felt were at high risk of either becoming victims or perpetrating violent crime. The tool never really made it into the mainstream. The issue was people began to accuse it of racism. And I have an interesting extract here from a white paper that challenges predictive policing, and it's very interesting. So let me just read you this extract here. Algorithms are capable of racism, just as humans are capable of racism. This is particularly true of an algorithm used in the context of the racially biased criminal justice system. Predictive policing algorithms are trained on data that is heavily infected with racism because that data is generated by human beings. Predictive policing algorithms are coded to delineate patterns in massive datasets and subsequently dictate who or where to police. End quote. Now, I do have some issues with this. It's from the abstract of this paper, which itself is highly biased against predictive policing. So there are a couple of things in there by stating a matter of fact that racially biased criminal justice system, that is debatable. Also, heavily infected with racism is weighted language. It's also are coded to delineate patterns. So it's accusing the data of being biased, which it may well be. That's not for me to decide. But there are always going to be issues on both sides of the argument. But that's case study number one, is Chicago. And as mentioned before, Chicago also did the 1,000-tile map over the city to try and find areas where crime is more likely. Now, let's move on to another case study. The next one I want to talk about is Los Angeles Pred poll system. That actually proved, the findings were that it was twice as accurate as human experts in predicting property crimes. Unfortunately, it was also accused of being racist. I say unfortunately, not because I'm racist. I'm saying unfortunately because I want to see technology come to full fruition. I want to see it do good in the world and help people. Now, if that technology became racist, then it was fundamentally flawed and rightly shut down. Okay, so what more? Well, the reason that the LA system didn't work was because there had been so much historical crime reported in brown and black neighborhoods versus white neighborhoods. And so it was that data that was used to train the algorithm. So critics would look at that and say that the AI was trained on racially biased information from the start. It also meant that what PredPol predicted was not where crime will occur, but where incidents are more likely to be discovered based on historical information. So it wasn't actually predicting crime, it was predicting where policing needs to take place. And if the result of that is saying that black and brown neighborhoods need more policing, it was declared racist. Another one for you, Santa Cruz, California. They saw a 19% reduction in property thefts after implementing AI-powered predictive policing. It was shut down, as most of them were, in 2020 and completely banned along with facial recognition technology after public protest because, again, it was racist. It was racially biased by design. And finally, from this era of predictive policing AI algorithms, the first batch, right? So Chicago, LA, Santa Cruz. The final one was New York City. And that one is, to this day, still running. Too much controversy. If you search for the New York City AI predictive policing thing, one of the first images you will see are people protesting against it. You will find articles taking it down and saying just how awful it is, how it needs to be reformed, how racist it is, and how much of a problem it is. And they might be right, but that particular AI focuses on predictive shootings, and that's something that's really hard to do. Much harder than looking at areas where there is rampant crime. You're trying to predict a shooting. That's verging more towards the Minority Report kind of thought crime stuff that just really isn't quite possible. Now, I don't know, it could be one day, but thought crimes, I don't know, that's so Orwellian, it's just ridiculous. Maybe you agree. Do you agree? Actually, head down in the comments. If you think this whole thing is totally Orwellian, let me know. I think it's super interesting, but it is a bit Orwellian. And the next case study probably going to prove it. Okay, so up to this point, I've only talked about a few US cities. That's great. If you're an American viewer, hello there. Howdy. But if you want a more global perspective or to know kind of where this technology is being used around the world, there's two case studies that I'm going to talk to you about. The first one is the most dramatic in the world, China. Sentimentally, when you live in a surveillance state that has a one-party system and where control and social stability are core tenets of your system, predictive policing is a natural evolution of law enforcement, right? Am I crazy in saying that? I feel like that is logically how things will go. When you need more control and more order, you have to have more police and more resources. But for China, the thing here is not about optimization of law enforcement resources. That's not how they're using predictive policing. Now, you may already be thinking the people who are suffering from Chinese predictive policing, you may already know it. And if you don't, think now, because I'm going to tell you in a second. China's system is about suppressing dissent and monitoring specific groups. There is one specific group that they are monitoring from the Xinjiang province. It is the Uyghur people. Now, I might get cancelled for saying that. Chinese will not like it. But it has to be said. The West, we are very well aware of what China is doing to Uyghur, right? And they may feel that they are justified, but it looks like a pretty cut and dry case of human rights violations. Now, how is China doing this? Well, they have massive data sets to leverage, right? They have AI, they have biometrics, they will do anything to stop what they call security events like protests, terrorism, random acts of violence. These are the kind of things that they believe that the Uyghurs are prone to, right? And there may be biased data to suggest that there is. Who knows? I'll go a little bit deeper into China's system. They have something called the Integrated Joint Operations Platform, IJOP, and this is kind of the beating heart of how China's predictive policing works, especially in Xinjiang. I should say almost exclusively in Xinjiang, because I've read online from my research, it's the only province where they're actually doing this. It's the Uyghur province. So basically, yeah, it aggregates data from facial recognition cameras, Wi-Fi sniffers, license plate cameras, tapping phones, bank records, mandatory mobile apps to report and flag suspicious behaviors, tracking overseas calls. Well, here's an example. If you're an Uyghur, right, and you receive an overseas call from a country that China is suspicious about, you might get flagged and you might get put in detention for it. Being put in detention, that's not prison according to Chinese, it's called a re-education camp. You can go on YouTube, you can go down a rabbit hole and learn about all this kind of stuff. It's really hard because they control the outflow of information so well that we'll probably never have the full story on this. And I don't want to get into that side of things too much and conspiracy theories and human rights violations, but the Uyghurs are a minority that are going through a very tough time right now. The next part is the social credit system and PGIS, which is the Police Geographical Information System. That's been used since the 90s, so before modern AI, but it's evolved and changed over time. It's now like a cloud-based platform for like crime mapping and prediction. It basically qualifies citizens' trustworthiness. So this social credit system that they have in China is not what you think it is. It's more of a way for the government to identify people who may be at risk of becoming criminals because they have low trustworthiness scores, because they have not been very good citizens that may make them more inclined to do crime and get themselves into trouble. Now, some cities are like Suzhou, Xinjiang and Guangdong. These have had predictive policing since 2013. And they've been pretty successful. Basically, they have targeted one specific crime, which I found quite interesting, that they believe that AI is really good at one thing, not at everything. I think that's a really good conclusion to this video for later. But basically, they believe that telecommunication fraud could be solved through predictive policing and the use of AI. And so that's what they did. And the latest data that I found said that they have stopped over 9,000 telecommunication fraud incidences using AI. Calls and texts, they basically managed to track what kind of calls and texts are being made, find the scams and stop them at source. And that really is a good application for it. And finally on China, before I move on, the next case study is the UK. If you're more interested in that, you can fast forward a little bit. But there's been a lot of private sector investment. If you work with the Chinese government, the CCP, it can do wonders for your business. Of course, magical things can happen. But Alibaba and other major tech companies, they have helped develop these predictive tools. Like Alibaba has this thing called ET City Brain, which is like a huge public security system that analyzes video, location data, pretty much like an AI for CCTV. I mean, that, again, is kind of invasive, but is designed to help track and stop crime at source. If you think all of this is hardcore, it is. China's hardcore. The Americans are crying, really, about very different approach to AI predictive policing that's way less hardcore, way less invasive, way less damaging, and they're out on the streets protesting. Why are the Chinese not out protesting? Perhaps they've already been silenced, and if their whole system is to stop dissent, it's worked. And my favourite Orwellian case study, my home country. Wow, good job UK for making it into this video. Yes, predictive policing is used in the UK. What a surprise, we are the most surveilled state in the world. There are CCTVs everywhere. You can't even go to the toilet without somebody watching you. That's an over-exaggeration. But pretty much local police forces in the UK, they're using AI predictive systems in different ways. Some of them use it geographically, like Chicago did, to try and find areas of crime. Some of it use it individually to try and find people that they believe are more inclined to crime. Okay, so they're trying to reduce crime, optimize resource allocation, and not be accused of perpetuating bias or violating human rights in the process. But of course, they have been. Okay, so what are they using? Well, they have this thing called PredPol. It's been renamed, I believe, called Geolytica. Basically, it uses historical crime data, much like in the US, to create these hotspot maps that help guide police patrols into areas that they think are high risk. That's being used in Kent, and they've been trialling that to map based on past arrests. So where has an arrest taken place, and then creating a map to show like which areas just seem to invite more crime or for whatever reason. They also have an individual risk assessment system called the National Data Analytics Solution. That's NDAS, and that was built by the Home Office, or funded by the Home Office, to analyze different kinds of police data, social services data, and school data to predict who might become criminal or who might become a victim of a crime. I feel like that's a better approach to it, not just to take police data, but to take other kinds of social and educational data into account. That creates less bias, I believe. British Transport Police using this, they're also using a lot of facial recognition cameras. So if you're ever in an airport, a bus station or train station in the UK, you are constantly being tracked by the cameras, facial recognition. It's also being used by different kinds of constabularies in like Cambridgeshire, in Cheshire, Essex, other counties, to inform stop and search behaviour for police. So who should they be stopping and searching? Again, that has such a history of racial bias that it's very difficult to do as part of a predictive policing effort. Now, of course, there are critics, like in the US. People believe the UK system is very controversial, and it's been called automated racism. I kind of agree. Like, it is undermining the presumption of innocence, and if the data is leading them to black and brown communities because of historical data, which is based on perhaps prejudiced policing from a majority white police force, there is a really strong argument there. I found out here a little story that in July 2024, some civil society groups urged the UK government to completely ban predictive policing and biometric surveillance. Why? Well, they cited disproportionate targeting of marginalised communities, and they referenced the EU's AI Act, which partially bans individual-focused predictive policing, but allows place-based systems, creating a regulatory gap. Now, remember, the UK is not in the EU, but uses many EU laws. So they've found a little loophole there that allows them to basically get on with it. Now, I really appreciate you sitting here watching this video. Your time means everything to us here at Substream. You know, we hit that magical 500 subscriber number recently. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We want to keep pushing on. Now, to do that, I have to spend more time doing research and getting deeper into it and taking positions. I've been quite passive through the last 100 or so videos in not taking too many positions. I don't want to be controversial, but I do have some thoughts that I want to share with you, and you may agree, you may not agree. That is your absolute right, and I would never try and take that away from you, nor say that you're wrong. What I say now is my opinion after doing hours of research into this subject. So, number one, the US case studies that I gave you were AI projects way too early in the AI timeline. They completely lacked access to the super powerful AI tools that we have right now in 2025. They also lacked basic AI data training and bias controls and transparency, and they were flawed from the start. Basically, they failed, I believe, because they were poorly designed. Not because the tech was bad, but that it was poorly designed. Number two, AI training is at such a level now that it was not 10 to 15 years ago. And so not only do you have a system that might be fundamentally flawed, the people using it were probably misusing it. And that is how I believe it led to all of the accusations of racism and prejudice, and creating this negative feedback loop which just reinforces more racism and prejudice. So yeah, the training was flawed. Number three, my fiance here is a data engineer, and I asked her this question this morning. Can data be weaponized? Tony, can data be weaponized?
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely, yes. Data is a massive weapon. Why do you think every government in the world is trying to collect as much data? Why are some of the malicious states trying to steal data from others? Why are hackers making millions by stealing data? It's because data is a weapon. In this case, in this story, it was used as a weapon by police groups taking unfavorable crime statistics of minority groups and using it as a feedback loop against them as a weapon. That's a real problem. And number 4, probably the most obvious point. Let's go back to the start. I referenced Minority Report and the Thought Police and Orwellians, and basically, come on. The technology to read people's mind before they do crimes is science fiction. It's not real. It doesn't matter how good your AI is. Knowing whether someone's going to do a crime or not is nonsense. They might stop at the last moment. You can't arrest somebody preemptively unless they are conspiring to actually do a crime, unless they're confessing to planning to doing a crime, unless they're actually, I don't know, in dark chat rooms somewhere doing, or talking about doing awful crimes. They are crimes, right? But arresting somebody on the basis that you think they might do a crime is totally different. If there's some data in an algorithm that says, oh, this guy, because of his race and because of what he's done in the past, because of what neighborhood he lives in, because of where he went to school, because of all these factors and more, he's going to go out and do a crime soon. I don't believe that. It also destroys the opportunity for reform, for people to fix their lives. If you have a wretched past and you've paid the price and been to jail, and that makes you a high-ranking candidate by an AI algorithm, and the police are on your case because of a predictive policing algorithm, it's going to be a real blocker for you to get your life back on track. And I think that puts up a massive hurdle for people who do want to turn these lives around. And if I take all of these, let's say point number 5, you take all of these points, simmer them down into one succinct, condensed line to take away from this. If anybody ever asks you what you think about using AI for solve crime, the point that I believe, my ultimate conclusion, all of these systems rely on data correlation, not causation, right? That's what leads to flawed predictions that entrench existing biases. You can quote me on that. You can capture it. But I do think AI holds massive potential for solving crimes or preventing crimes, prevention, but it's not without challenges. There are massive challenges ahead, and I don't think the tech is there yet. But, before you make up your mind on this, let's go right back to the first case study I gave you. I didn't give you any data, I didn't give you any numbers. There was something super interesting found. And before anyone gets smug thinking anything about any other race or group, the Chicago AI study found that wealthier areas saw more arrests. The crime rate, pretty similar between wealthy neighborhoods and minority neighborhoods, okay? Now, there's different, you could argue why. Why is that? Well, it's always been thought that wealthier neighborhoods get better public services, right? They are, maybe ambulances get there faster, police get there faster, fire engines get there faster. Well, what if that's true? What if police do make more arrests in wealthier neighborhoods because they have a better relationship with the area, right? Because they feel that they can do better work there, because they're less hated, whether they merit that or not. Perhaps it's that minority neighborhoods are better at handling crimes, or more willing to handle crimes internally, whether that's violently through vengeance or whether that's by working together as a community. Perhaps those communities just handle it themselves because they don't trust the police, they don't like them, they don't have a good history with them. But that is an interesting little bit of knowledge there, that there were more arrests from wealthy neighborhoods. And I don't want to say that white and wealthy are the same thing, but what the Chicago study is saying are these wealthy neighborhoods were predominantly white, whereas the what they call the minority neighborhoods were very mixed, predominantly black. That's what the data says. Now, considering that, can you see the bigger picture of this story? Can you also see how difficult this video is for me to make as a white British male? Talking about this stuff is very difficult to me. I try and stay away from these political and difficult, racially motivated videos. I try and stay neutral here. It's not my fight. One other thing, I've talked a lot about race in this video and how prejudice and bias have come into it, but they are not the only reasons that all those projects got shut down. There's also data management, how data is used and collected and looked after. There's also the transparency about how decisions are being made, how algorithms are being built. That lack of transparency is very dangerous. There's also questions about accountability. When things go wrong, who is to blame? Can you blame a robot? Can you blame an algorithm? People want to have someone or something or some group or some management board to blame. And when you just have an AI algorithm, people don't really like that. And as for China and the Uyghurs, that's another big challenge. I don't know. I don't know enough about that. I haven't done a great deal of research. I've watched a little bit, but I don't know enough. I do know that the international community is furious and they're trying to raise their voice on behalf of the Uyghurs. But with so many AI systems in place and the entire Chinese state working against them in such a tightly controlled and well-organized country, what chance do the Uyghurs have? That's going to be an answer for someone else to make. Now, the good news is, problem one I mentioned was that the tech wasn't there yet, right? The AI wasn't up to scratch, but it's getting there, right? It's improving at an exponential rate. You've seen that. You probably use some AI tools. You see it's getting better and better like every single month. I mean, Google just dropped some ridiculous tool the other day that's mind-blowing. You can't even tell the difference between this video and a Google video, AI-produced text to video generation. It's ridiculous. So, I mean, that's going to create all sorts of new crimes, but it's also going to help with this predictive policing. The future potential of, let's say, unbiased yet highly accurate AI-driven crime prediction systems, well, the potential is massive. The premise is good, but it has to look at all communities equally. If there's racial bias, it's just not going to work. It's just going to get shut down again, right? There's other trends that are emerging that have made leaps and bounds in the last decades. I'm talking deep learning techniques and research. I'm talking about Internet of Things, IoT, sensors and devices that can help take predictive capabilities even further. There's even ways for AI to work with data to remove inherent biases like penalized likelihood methods. It's a new technique that basically adjusts models during the training phase itself so that they are less biased and kind of stops targeting based on disproportionate incarceration rates for different demographics. Now, if we are going to make big progress on this and kind of overcome all of these hurdles, we need more transparency and more accountability. That's it. Don't even want to say much more. There's a lot of work ahead, but if you're watching this in 2025, a lot of the hard work's been done, even if unsuccessful. A lot of the successful work's going to come, but again, it's going to be hard. It won't be easy, but the analyses say year on year improvements are being made. So don't expect Minority Report level crime prediction to come about anytime soon, but who knows, predictive policing may make some big leaps soon. Before we go, substreamers, I would like to ask you a question, something for you to chew over and perhaps leave an answer to in the comments below. Do you believe that if we can leverage the full power of AI, we will make a better world for ourselves or a worse one? Think about it and let me know. Stay curious. I'm Joseph, your presenter. This is Substream. formerly known as Substream News Network. Thank you for watching. Thank you for helping us hit 500. We're now on the road to 1,000 subs. Just thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Bye for now. And don't do any crimes. Yeah? Be good. Bye-bye.